global supply chain has really been a roller coaster the past 4 or 5 years, even before that. I mean, even before COVID, we had the whole China tariff debacle and tariff costs rising and people misunderstanding who's actually paying for those tariffs. Then we had, like you said, freight costs going through the roof, and what does that mean for SMBs that are importing product where all of a sudden your freight costs just 5x or 10x in some cases. It's insane. And now I think you have this dynamic where freight costs have gone down, but there's just the whole side of random lockdowns that still happen, and then also just what's going on with e-commerce as a whole in terms of a lot of these companies use debt to fuel growth, especially when purchasing inventory, and now a lot of them are in a cash crunch in terms of paying for inventory that they might have already sold or sitting on too much inventory, right? And so I think it's been a really tough situation for e-commerce brands to understand how to forecast. And e-commerce grew like crazy the past 3 years. It's still growing, but it's not growing at the pace that it was during COVID, of course. And I think when times are good, people think the good times are going to last forever. And if anything, everyone's learned during the past 3 years to really be diligent when it comes to your spending and your inventory, and understand when there's a slowdown, you need to be well positioned, because otherwise that could really at worst put you out of business.
So there's a lot in there. Basically, some of that is inventory financing and the best way to approach that. And then there's also just the question of where do you source and what are the most advantageous regions. Maybe let's start there. Like, if you're a founder thinking about your supply chain and the places where you're manufacturing products, where are the like tried and true locations that you should be going?
I mean, number one, China for sure, right? I think China is still the world manufacturing hub. They have, the most agile supply chain. You can produce products, especially if you're just starting out, in smaller quantities, whereas a lot of places, other places you can't. Especially I remember when I first went to Vietnam, like 2017 maybe or so, and a lot of the factories there were better suited to work with major Fortune 1000 brands, and weren't really in a position to work with small, medium-sized e-commerce brands. And I think that's changed a bit. But at the end of the day, like, if you're just trying to launch an e-commerce brand, number one, the best access to factories in terms of your ability to find the right factory is going to be China. And then in terms of your ability to actually find a factory that fits your needs and fits kind of the MOQs that you want to start with, it's going to be China 100%. There's different reasons to go outside of China, whether it be because you want something that stems from Italian leather, or because you want, a special type of manufacturing process. But at the end of the day, like most e-commerce brands, are still in large part produced in China.
So that do you consult any brands to diversify the regions in which they're gathering resources, like for any reason, just like for mitigating risk, or is that really not an issue?
Yeah, I mean, Sourcify has 4 offices in Asia. So China, Vietnam, India, and Pakistan is what we cover. And, when it comes to diversification, we really think about net cost in terms of your net landed cost. I think a lot of times, like, unit cost might be more attractive in China. But then, if you look at tariffs, especially like during the time when there was a lot of tariff hikes, that made it so it was more advantageous to produce in India or in Pakistan. So diversification is always important. I don't think anyone should ever be single sourced. You always should have backup suppliers to work with. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think diversification across country right now, I think a lot of that stems from geopolitical risks, which is something we probably spend the whole day talking about if we wanted to. But there's so much going on right now between China and America. And I think especially during COVID, we saw that the world's kind of health supply, both from medicine and both from PPE material, stems out of China. And, it was just kind of insane from my perspective to see, how much of the American consumer relies on China when it comes to, everything from their medicine to supplements to, PPE type of equipment. And so I think diversification is going to be top of mind, and especially from a geopolitical standpoint, you see the U.S., creating the CHIPS Act and a lot of the other, government-funded resources to enable companies to actually set up, real manufacturing facilities here in the States, and incentivizing, large companies to do that.